We'll call the city council work session to order. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilperson Lamore,
He's excused.
Felder,
Here.
Whitman, here. Grave, here. Vining, here. Germaine, here. Mayor Clark.
Present. So we have several items here this evening on our agenda for the work session, and I know that Mr. Pesto, you have your kind of lineup in order. So
All right.
I think since we have several to go through, we just get started.
Okay, thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Cochran, I'm going to have Mark handle the first item with Recreation Community Partnership update for council and the community.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor, City Council, Mark Cochran, Economic and Community Development Director.
So this evening, we wanted to take a moment and just provide City Council with an update to the successful year that we've had in partnership with several different organizations in the Parks and Recreation Division. One of City Council's goals and objectives last year was to foster more collaborative relationships within the city to enhance quality of life programming for our residents. And one of the ways that we did that as part of the reorganization of the Parks and Rec Department was to reach out to many of our community partners and stakeholders to look at how can we partner with them to increase activities, not only in the park system, but utilizing many of the city's assets across the entire city. And so we wanted to invite some of those partners, all of which you've approved agreements with over the past year or so in partnership, including the Monroe Family YMCA, who this year, for the first time, took over all of our league and community recreation sports programmings. And I'll say for the first year, I think they did a bang-up job, and I've heard much the same from many of the coaches, the participants, and the community overall, as well as some of the enhanced fitness throughout the city's park system as well. Also, the Monroe County Opportunity Program and MCOP, in addition to being the operator of the Opportunity Center at the ALCC, they also took over the Tot Lot program this summer, as well as other activities and programs in Labor Park and other areas throughout the city. And then finally, a new partner this year was a Great Start Collaborative. Amy Zarin and Nikki Eiler collaborated with Amy Mason in the Recreation Division to bring more family-friendly programs into the park system, and you'll get an update on that. And then finally, I'll wrap it up with just an update on some of the city-initiated and city-led recreation programs in the parks. So first up, I'll invite Kristen Irwin, Executive Director of the YMCA, to provide an overview of the programs that they did. So, Kristen?
Okay. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Thank you for having me here. It's so nice to be here. We really want to thank you all for inviting us to partner with the city in this endeavor. I have just been really wanting to partner with the city a long time in the Parks and Recreation Department, and it was awesome. I met with Mr. Pesto and Mark, I don't know, December and January, and they said, well, can you do this? I'm like, well, yeah, I can do this for sure. And I was really confident. I walked out. I had no idea how we were going to do it, but I knew that I wanted to do it. So thank you for taking a chance on us. I feel like we had a great year. We only had a few minor bumps that needed to be ironed out, but nothing we couldn't handle. Kudos to your city employees. Amy Mason, amazing. She shared every document with us, was very transparent, held nothing back, and that really helped us enter in this endeavor for the first time. Your parks maintenance department, amazing. Brad and his crew, I could not ask for better. They were amazing. Great to work with. Communication was wonderful. Pretty much did everything that we asked. So kudos to city employees. Oh shoot. Oh yeah. I only have 4 slides, but this is the picture of our All-Star Night. Had to get the mayor in here. Mayor threw the first pitch. Thank you. We had more than 1,000 people at our All-Star Night this year. It was cool. The guy on the left is Donnie Jones. He ran the adult league for us this year. It was great. And then Hawk Milky is the one in the orange. He's the one who actually got it done. When I said I could do it, I didn't know how. I hired him. He's been a Y employee for several years. He got promoted to community rec director. Hawk is right here. And then we have the mayor, and then Jay Heiserling, who hired on for youth ball, the youth ball coordinator. And then at the end of the season, I hired him full time too. So now he does Y on the Fly mobile sports. And so that's our community rec division. And what we've heard is that these guys were there. I know they were. We've heard from the community, and I know they were there all the time. They're the faces of our program. The people call them the big guy and the little guy, or the tall guy and the big guy. But they were always there, and the coaches really appreciated that. So I want to thank you guys because I didn't do the work you did. Next slide. Our first collaboration started in 2021. That was the Fitness in the Park series. We averaged about 16 people a class. During this, we also offered our food program and our Y on the Fly mobile sports program. And this was great. We didn't know how this would go in 2021. It was pretty good. I like seeing people out at St. Mary's Park. It's nice. And then these are the existing programs that we took over. And I'm not going to read through all of it, but adding up the numbers, we had over 1,800 participants this summer at Munson Park. At one point, I think it was in May, I was walking around and I had called Mark. I said, thank you, because you make me realize, you give me, what did I say, more energy, because I love what I do when I see all these families out here. It was really, it was so nice to see every field was full. People were playing tennis, people were playing soccer. It was nice that families were enjoying time together. And then these are our new programs. We ran an adaptive program this summer, and we used one of the core 4 fields, and it was Saturday mornings where anybody was welcome. It was actually run all volunteer by Hawk and Jay and their families. They came out, and it was a drop-in. Got a lot of positive feedback from our adaptive program, so that's something we're going to try to integrate more in our community rec programs. We ran a summer wiffle ball, which I didn't know if it gained traction or not, but we used the front fields, and it did. That was pretty cool. Summer tennis, and then our big win was fall t-ball. We'd never ran a fall t-ball, and we weren't sure. We were aiming for about 30 participants, and we had 130. And I think we can really build off that. So we were excited for that. And then we ran a Tiny Tacklers football program out there that Jay ran. Sorry, Stephanie. We're thinking, one thing in the future that we're working on is a collaboration with Dundee Junior Vikings to run a collaborative rec ball program, but it's a travel rec in the county. And we think that'll get a lot of kids involved. We can use different parks throughout the county or different fields. So it gives you a travel ball field without the travel ball money. So all the kids will be able to participate. So we're very excited about that and where that's going to lead us. Because the goal is more impact, more kids participate, more families. So I want to thank you guys for allowing us to work with the city to do this, because we're only going up, more kids. So does anybody have any questions for me?
Thanks for presentation and review. See if there's any questions from Kelly.
I have questions, but we do Y at the Fly at the Fire Branch every Thursday, so big guy is a big kid.
Now, how do you know he's a big guy, not the tall guy?
So, yeah, you do a great job with kids, and I saw you at the family fun night, and that was like, the big deal was upstairs, doing all the Y on the Fly stuff, so I've witnessed that part of it, and then a few of my grandchildren also participated in the summer league, so.
Oh, good.
So, yeah, good work, keep up the good work.
Thank you.
Thank you. Other comments or questions? Michelle?
I just want to thank you for taking us on. I know it was a big
Likewise,
task, so
yes.
Thank you.
And we could have done that without the help of the city employees too. I want to just reiterate that again, so. Thank you.
Thanks. Mark?
To follow up on some of what Kristen talked about, at the end of the season, we held a coaches meeting. Hawk and Jay ordered enough pizza, I think, to feed all of Monroe County for that. But we had the meeting, and to carry on to what Kristen said about Hawk and Jay being present at the fields throughout the season, that was probably the main compliment that I heard from all the coaches, was the presence, the accessibility to those who were running and organizing the league. And so I want to thank Hawk and Jay especially as well. But, I think one of the things that Kristen didn't mention was last week, Brad, Willie, and I met with the three of them as well to talk about next season and some opportunities that we have before us. And I think the strength of the relationships that we have with our nonprofit partners is the relationships that they have with some of the other funders. One of the big surprises that Kristen brought out at the meeting last week was they got a lot of, how much? $16,000 in new sport equipment donated. That's great helmets, great bats, other equipment. We tried getting balls, we didn't get the balls, but all of that donated for free that are going to be available for the youth in the program to use, not hand-me-down, not beat-up, tore-up equipment. And that was something that we did not include in our department budget this year. So the ability for the YMCA to fill those funding holes and provide the equipment for part of the program, I think is wonderful. And then we also talked about some other grants that they know about that we can apply for that are going to help improve our facilities. And really, the only feedback, I think on the negative side that we heard from the coaches was the need to upgrade some of our facilities at Munson Park. And so when we go over the capital improvements program next month, you're going to see that we've inserted some improvements to help facilitate and grow and improve the park facilities that the YMCA is using. So thank you for that. Next is Stephanie Kasperzak with MCOP.
Well, I always appreciate coming and giving you updates on the Opportunity Center and our activities at Labor Park. So we took on the Opportunity Center 3 years ago now. We took on activities in Labor Park 2 years ago. And so I'm really happy to be here tonight. One of the things that I always talk about is in partnership, anything is possible, right? And so MCOP does nothing in a silo. We do nothing without our community partners. So they're a key part of everything that we do. So everybody sitting here has partnered with us in one way or the other, and especially as it relates to these activities. So I always like to show some cute pictures, but we just wanted to reiterate again, I know I mentioned this last time I was here, but we did the Mike Mignano Community Logo Art Challenge and got a new logo for the Opportunity Center. So you're going to start seeing that a lot more in the upcoming months as we share that. But also just some great pictures of the kids. On the left you have, we worked with the Community College Urban Garden this year, and the kids got to go out for a day and work in the garden with Nate and Pete, who work out at the community college and volunteer, and they got to pick some sunflowers. So that was a great picture of that field trip. And Maya Falls is on the right. Maya was our youth coordinator. So for those of you who haven't met Maya yet, she's Ramona's daughter, but also took on a lot of our youth activities throughout the summer. So she helped us keep it together this summer with all these great activities that we were planning, and she had a lot of fun to boot. So first I'll talk about our summer day camp. So we run summer day camp from June 13th through August 12th. It runs from 10 until 3. This year we partnered with Sodexo. Sodexo called us and said, hey, we'd like to partner with you for Tot Lot and for summer camp. And so because they actually bring the lunch to each of the sites and they actually serve the lunch right on site, so the kids were fed right there, we took advantage of that partnership and worked with Monroe Public Schools and Sodexo to make that happen. So it was very helpful for us from a staffing perspective, from a logistics perspective, to have that partnership. But you can see on average during the week, we had about 29 kids that participated in summer camp from 10 until 3. They were fed breakfast and lunch. And there's some of the sessions that we did listed there. So the first week we hit it off really high with Kidpreneur Camp, where we showed kids how to be a young entrepreneur. So we had a different entrepreneur come in every day and show them different things. So the first day, for example, they got to learn how to make their own design and make their own t-shirts. And through the week, we had different entrepreneurs that came in to talk to the kids about what it's like to be an entrepreneur, how hard you have to work, the different things that they've done, some of the challenges they've run into. So it was a really eye-opening experience for the kids. The second week we did nutrition education, where we took things from the community garden and we brought them into the commercial kitchen. We took advantage of that space and the kids got to make their own meals and see how the kitchen works, pick stuff from the garden, and really saw it from plant to in the pan. So next we did Discover Monroe, where we go around Monroe and we visit some cool places. So we come to City Hall, we go to the fire station, we have the police come out to the Opportunity Center. We go to the zoo, we go to all different places throughout Monroe. So kids not only see what's in their neighborhood, but what great things can be done across Monroe County. Amy Arnold is our local artist. She's been working with us for a couple of years. She comes and does art camp every year, and they do things for the community garden, so you can see some of their artwork in the garden. They help out with some of the mural pieces. They do a lot of great things. We have drama and dance week, and then a sports sampler, so kids can learn different recreation activities. So that was our summer camp. So if you came to the center anytime between 10 and 3, Monday through Friday, it was just teeming with activity because we had a lot of kids every day. We took on Summer Tot Lot this year, so that was a new addition. We had this 6 sites, so these were the sites that we used. Greenwood was a new one, and we did that because there were a couple of parks that were on the list before, but we really wanted to make sure that we were representing in spaces where there were low-income people. Because our mission at MCOP is to serve low-income people, we did reach out to Nancy Wayne, who's part of our board, and Nancy was really grateful to have Tot Lot at Greenwood, and it was a wonderful site. It was one of our biggest sites, so I believe we'll go back to Greenwood year after year. You can see there the list of all of them. Munson was very popular. We always had the kids outside at Labor Park as well. So we did that with our summer youth employment program, which has been an amazing part of our work at the center. So we hire kids age anywhere from 14. We had a couple of college students, one very familiar one, a couple of very familiar ones actually, who helped us with Tot Lot, but they can range in age up to 21 years old. And so we had 2 summer youth workers at each Tot Lot site. Maya coordinated different packets of things for the week. So one day was game day, another day was art and craft day, and so she had something different for every day. So we pick the youth up, or they come to the center. We get them their package for the day. We took them to the site. Then we had lunch brought in by Sodexo. We went through all of these activities. We had all the kids sign in so we could know our numbers. And you see there, we had 20 total summer youth workers, but 12 of them were assigned to our summer tot lot. The other ones were doing other things around the Opportunity Center, also in our food pantry as well. But we had an average 112 kids per day who visited tot lot and 2,175 total throughout the summer. And then we had a number of great activities. So I know many of you came out to these activities, but we had a lot of fun this summer out at Labor Park and the Opportunity Center. We started with our Juneteenth celebration, which was on June 18th. We also dedicated our sharing garden that day. So we had a lot of our funding partners come out, and Keith Mazarant worked really hard to get that beautiful structure up by the 18th of June. So we were able to dedicate the sharing garden on that day. It looked really beautiful. It was a wonderful event. The next month in July, we had our mural block party. So on Juneteenth was the first day of the mural projects going on across Monroe. So we started on June 18th. We finished on July 15th, and all the murals were done. And so we had our transportation staff who took people around to the different murals. There were 5 murals in total. It was an amazing day. And then Woody Hoffer, who's part of our advisory council for the Opportunity Center, he really planned all of those murals and did all that hard work. So I have to just say a huge thank you to Woody. He's already planning for next year's murals, and we're hoping to make it even better than last year. But those murals are fabulous, and he ended that with a wonderful block party that got a lot of people out in the community. Then there's the Get Your Mind Right Summit. So we had a new partner this year in the Community Mental Health Authority of Southeastern Michigan. I think I'm close on that. But we really started to focus. As you guys know, we have the Community Health Hub at the Opportunity Center. and started to focus a little bit on behavioral health. So we work with Family Medical Center. We have a behavioral health kiosk, and then we got the grant in order to do this summit in August. So August 13th, we had Get Your Mind Right Summit, where we had a panel of therapists available. We had a wonderful keynote speaker. You can see her there, Dr. Rose Moten, came from Detroit. She's absolutely amazing. And that event was attended by I think 65 people we had that day. And then to end the summer, we had our back to school bash, which we did do with Great Start Collaborative. And it's a great opportunity for families to come out and get some school supplies, to learn about Head Start, Great Start, a lot of the Parent Coalition work. It's always a big summer hit to get that last splash in the splash pad. So wonderful partnerships all around. And so that was really all of our work at the Opportunity Center in Labor Park. Do you guys have any questions of me? We're looking forward to next year making it bigger and better. Yeah, absolutely.
To the youth employment program, we've had some conversations with Julie Everly and Stephanie about how we can use the youth employment program as an opportunity to develop the talent pipeline for the city. So those youth that are employed by MCOP and the Opportunity Center throughout the summer, once they age out of the youth employment program, can we then look at positioning them for our summer parks maintenance program and come and work for the city in the parks maintenance program? Because we did have a bit of a challenge in recruiting those staff members this year. And then using that furthermore as a talent pipeline into our DPS and full-time permanent parks maintenance program for staff professional development. But I also want to say too, as Stephanie mentioned, Greenwood was a new site for the Tot Lot this summer. And this year, I think we had talked about it, or City Council, I hope, is aware, but we got a call from Lazy Boy, and their interns wanted to tackle a project this summer. And so we got with Nancy Wayne and the interns at Lazy Boy and the park staff got together and made a lot of improvements to the playground in the park at Greenwood Park, which was the site of one of our tot lots. And it got the conversation going with the Housing Commission, because Greenwood Park is not one of our city parks that we own and operate and maintain. And so we're in discussions about a cooperative management plan, maintenance plan with the Housing Commission to maintain Greenwood Park and possibly utilize some of our CDBG funds to improve those facilities, not just for the Greenwood residents, but for the entire neighborhood, including those that come to Tot Lot. So a lot more coming and blooming out of these partnerships besides what happened this summer. But the next partnership is the Great Start Collaborative of Monroe County. I don't want to steal Aaron's thunder, but the Great Start Collaborative is really a program that's designed to work with all of the community partners to create sustainable supports for families in our community. And so we thought, what greater way to partner than to utilize our city resources, our parks, and other things to look at how we can increase family-oriented activities across the city throughout the summer. And so I'll turn it over to Amy to talk about both what we did this summer and then also some of the stuff that may be on the horizon.
Thank you. He's not stealing any thunder. Good evening, Mayor, and thank you, City Council members, for having all of us tonight. Much appreciated. So our partnership has also been wonderful, and I loved Stephanie saying that anything is possible with partnership, and that is absolutely true. We have been able to accomplish so much in our first year together with the city, and the people that just presented with me tonight, we're all part of what we did. So I am just going to give you, I'm hoping, what is a brief overview of the things that we have done, and then some of the ideas that we've already started for the winter and for next year. So this summer, starting right after the kids got out of school, we started with popsicles in the park. So every week, multiple times throughout the week, our Great Start parent coordinator had organized different locations, and she would be there, and we would advertise it out through all of our social media sites, and we would encourage families to come together at the park. She would provide popsicles, and this was a great way for kids to get together. A lot of these little ones, if you think about it, they have never really been able to get together with their peers because they were COVID babies or just pre-COVID babies. So some of these 3-year-olds have never been in preschool. They've never had really great social connections quite yet. So these partnerships and doing these types of activities were good for the parents to start to get some social and peer connections, but also for the children. So popsicles in the park took place all summer long, multiple parks, at least one per week. Up on the screen, you'll see our story walk. This was a partnership with, of course, the city. It started, you may have seen it last year. It was outside of the Dorsch Library. The early childhood partner that you would never have thought of was the Road Commission, and the Road Commission donated decommissioned signs. We had them, we had some labels printed on them, and this became a story walk. And so monthly, we would rotate the stories out. Kids could get together with their families. When it was at Dorsch, they were 6 feet apart so that people could stay socially distanced. When we moved it to Boyd, not such a concern, but we this summer had the story walk out at Boyd Park all summer long and had a couple of different stories that were rotated out. So there it is at Dorsch, and as you can see, the spacing a bit more. That was definitely during a much more risky time. This is a huge event that I think we kind of shocked Miss Amy Mason with a little bit. She had wanted to do her first ever family/kids concert. And as soon as she said that, we had the perfect entertainer in mind, which is Mr. Jim Gill. I don't know if any of your children or grandchildren have been part of a Jim Gill concert, but he's amazing. And we advertised this out through so many sites, and we estimate that there were well over 1,000 people in attendance for our first family concert. It was wild. So the kids were dancing. He is a very extremely engaging performer. We already have looked at, with Amy, booking him for next year a little bit earlier because we had like our choice of one date with him. But easily 1,000 people there for this one. We had community partners in the back that had different activities for kids going on as well, so that if they were starting to get bored and needed to do even more, they could go in the back and do activities too. So again, a huge collaboration. I can't even imagine what year 2 will be like with this concert. We also did a kids and caregivers dance out on the tennis courts. And so I want to say we probably had 40 to 50 families that came out, I think. That, you know, there's always the mother-son, father-daughter dance. And so what we wanted to do was just any caregiver and kid could come and have a dance. And we had a DJ and they were out there dancing. The adults did dance, so it was very entertaining. And then again, as Stephanie mentioned, we did have the end of summer bash, which was very well attended again. And just last week, we did a family fun night at the Opportunity Center, and this we host at least once a year. We did move it to the Opportunity Center once MCOP started taking that over. Things that happen at this event are both fun and important. So free haircuts are offered by a number of different salons for kids that might, you know, their families might not be able to afford haircuts. Smiles on Wheels does dental treatments for kids 18 and under. So as long as they're there, they will do as many dental checkups as they can for those kids right on site. Free boxes of food were given out. There were physical activities, again, by Y on the Fly in the gym. We had a story room and tons of community partners with tables. This is leading up to some of our things we have planned. So in the winter, we started talking about what can we do, because outside, getting out in the parks could be a little bit challenging, and it's tough to get people out anyway in Michigan winters or Michigan falls because it's freezing. So we're planning to do a story walk in the winter. We are moving it. Currently, it was placed, and we're going to be moving locations. So the story walk will be placed one more time, and it will stay for the winter. And the stories will just be rotated out on one of the sidewalks that just gets regularly plowed. We are looking at, again, with that wonderful maintenance department, the Parks Maintenance Department, developing a Share a Sled program at Munson, where there will be able to like kind of give a penny, take a penny. If you don't need a sled, leave your sled. Many of us with older kids now don't need our sled, so we will donate them. And kids that don't have a sled will be able to borrow one from the little bin that hopefully Brad is building. We're planning to do movies monthly at the Battlefield Visitor Center. And so January through March, we will have a free child and family movie scheduled. Again, community partners will be able to come and have information and activities before the meeting, really wear those kids out before we send them to bed. Another of our outdoor activities is a snowy story time pop-ups. So we never really know in Michigan what days we're actually going to get snow. And even if they say we are, we might not. And when they say we aren't, we do. So what we're doing is snowy storytime pop-up. So when we know that we're going to be getting snow, we're going to start advertising like 2 or 3 days ahead of time, show up at this park at this time, and we'll be able to do like a story time with sleds. The kids will sit in sleds, bring blankets, be all bundled up. And then after the story, they will be able to spray snow with all kinds of colored water and things like that. So play outside for just, half hour, 45 minutes and get them back inside. But another way to get them all throughout Monroe County into the parks, even in the winter. And we do plan to kind of do what we call the hype posts beforehand. So probably starting in early December, we'll start hyping these, like be on the lookout for our snowy story time. So people will know that they're coming, and they will be very last minute, just depending on when we get snow. And our big event that we have that we are working on for this winter is called a Cabin Fever Beach Party. And we will be holding this at the Battlefield Visitor Center in the South Event Space. There will be a family concert performance indoor. Part of that will also be just an activity space for kids to run off energy. Why on the fly? We would anticipate partnering with them again. Dance companies, CrossFit has volunteered to be part of this, and having a corner balloon pit. And again, just getting these kids out, having it, they're all stuck inside, come inside, get warm. We're going to do it like kind of a Hawaiian luau theme, and get them busy. As soon as the concert's done, again, wear them out, take them home, and get them to bed. And then in the spring, we've talked about just an idea, and that's what's up here for you now, is interactive sidewalks. And these are very important. We have a new program that we're doing in Monroe County called, and we were up a pilot program for First 10. And it's called the Basics, and there are 5 basics for early childhood. And we'd like to incorporate those basics into interactive interactive sidewalks that we will have painted or chalked all throughout the community. The schools that we're partnering with, Dundee, Monroe, and Bedford, will also be painting these at all of their school locations. And so this is just an example, but what they'll do is they'll focus on social emotional. So there might be a poem, skip here, jump here, read here, sing here, dance and twirl, different things that will go on to, again, make them interactive sidewalks, hopefully in a sidewalk near you soon. So those are just a few of the things that we've done and that we hope to have coming for sure. And then again, I can't say enough about Mark and Amy Mason and Brad Willie. I mean, they've been fantastic to work with. So thank you for letting us do this, and I hope you allow us to continue. So any questions? Thank you.
For the presentations, it's wonderful to see all the great work that's being done in partnerships, but also for our youth and our community. Mark?
The Great Start Collaborative really has great relationships with all of our community partners and an outreach list that matches Sandy Pierce with the HSC, and if you've ever seen her outreach list. But so one of the challenges I know that we always have is how do we make people aware of all of these opportunities and events that are going on? And between the YMCA, the city, MCOP, the Opportunity Center, and the Great Start, the reach that all of us have with our email list, our social media, our website, and everything, we really do our best to let everybody know about all these opportunities that are available. So finally, I just wanted to give a wrap up for the Parks and Rec Division, all the activities and programs that Amy Mason really worked hard over the summer on. And I'll say part of the strength and the beauty of the relationships that we have with the partners that have presented tonight is it allows our Parks and Recreation Division to focus on more special events for folks to enjoy our park system and our recreational amenities, but also Brad and the maintenance crew have done such a tremendous job in working with all these organizations to prepare the parks and make sure that they're maintained for all these programs to come. And so our summer park concert series was extraordinary this year. We added 6 more concerts in 2022 from before COVID in 2019. So we had just over 38,000 people attend all of our concerts in the park this summer. You'll see the 3 most popular ones as they are most summer is Shout, the Beatles tribute, Bob Seger, and Soundproof. Amy also did a great job in getting food trucks to participate in this year's concert series as well. And then Amy's Aaron mentioned this year we had the children's concert in the park that was very popular, and that was one of the 6 that we added this summer. And I know Amy is already hard at work booking bands for next year's concert series too. But in addition to the concerts and the events that our partners talked about, we also had several different events throughout the year. The court dances, the daddy-daughter dance, we had line dancing on the tennis courts, which I know Amy and her husband Aaron pitch hitted for and actually taught line dancing because one of the instructors got sick. The family dance party, Halloween Bark in the Park was a new one. And then we're also, as you saw with the story walk, we're trying to get more opportunities for families to independently enjoy our parks and trails. And so over the summer, Amy put together some scavenger hunts that were on our website. It listed different things throughout the parks that families could just go at their own time and complete the scavenger hunt and be entered to win some cool gift baskets and prizes that the recreation department gave out. And so we'll be looking to do even more of those in the next year. The park rentals, and then we also have the community garden plots at Munson Park as well, looking to expand those into other neighborhood parks in the next year too. Here's some photos from the Bark in the Park that Amy put together and organized in October. And so all in all, throughout all these programs, between the concerts and the other programs, we had over 40,000 people participate in programs throughout our parks and neighborhoods this summer, which I think is a tremendous testament to the hard work of all of our staff and all of our community partners. So I want to thank City Council for all of your support in developing these programs and relationships, and hopefully looking forward to even more success and more partnerships in the years to come. So thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Thanks for all the work and all the staff's organizations and the partnerships and the nonprofits that we're here and presenting this evening. So any questions? Thanks. Mr. Pastu?
Gunnar, you want to handle the next introduction?
Sure, I can do that. So one of the, talk about items within our community and something that should be known to everybody do a presentation of the past year, but also what they have envisioned for the future is the Robert S. Duncanson Society presentation. Mr. Pat Barley is going to kick it off, and then he has just a little presentation here to give us an idea what a success this past year is about where we're going in the future.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and City Council. I'm with the Robert Sullivan Duncanson Society, and I'm also a Rotarian and a member of the NAACP. And I just want to let you know that we want to thank you for allowing us to give you a short update on what we've accomplished in just 2022. We held 3 diversity in the arts events. February 19th, we had Black Artists in Detroit, and the dedication of the people who are the members of the Detroit Fine Arts Business Club, who provided the funding for the Robert Sullivan Duncanson's monument in Woodland Cemetery. We dedicated that first event to the Black Artists from Detroit. It was from the National Park told us that it's the largest event they've had in their facility, so that was a lot of fun. April 19th, we had diversity in the arts. We had Monroe artists, Laura Adkins, portraits, David Larkin, landscape art, Laura Mocknick, pastel portraits, and Stacy Hall, portraits of historical Black artists. All 4 artists are now world-renowned in their field, each different and unique, and all attended Monroe County Community College. What we found out at the presentation is they all attended at the same time, and they were all in the same classes most of the time, so it was pretty fascinating. So they all 4 are still continuing to be recognized and receive national awards. Laura Mocknick is now in 2 articles, major articles in art magazines right now, just since our event. In addition, we recognize the art of 17 Monroe County artists ages 9 to 83. I'm a lifelong educator. My career was community education. So I believe cradle to grave education. So we believe art, cradle to grave. We also had one local artist who said she'd like to have her book presented. Cynthia Olson. She wrote a book called The Home for Unwanted Children. And there really is a place called Home for Unwanted Children. There were 20 of them in the United States. And just since that event, she's won 2 first-place National Book Awards for nonfiction writing. She lives in Bowles Harbor. She's one of us. On August 19th, 2022, we had Women in the Arts held at the Monroe Historical Museum. Local well-known and respected women artists gave presentations on their art. Linda Rutledge, Martha Cavargel, Kelly Mistry, and Alicia Robinson. And also featured local women artists presenting their artwork. Darlene Belair, Karen McLaughlin, Sherry Sutherland, Amanda Reynolds, Pauline Harmon, and Paula Doherty. If you haven't seen the revitalized Robert Sullivan Duncanson exhibit at the museum, please take a look at it. They've done a great job with that now. It looks really good. Our programs have been held at the River Raisin Battlefield National Park, Monroe County Community College, the Monroe Historical Museum. In addition, Robert Sullivan Duncanson has had 6 plein air events. Plein air is where you paint outside. Whatever the elements are, you paint in them. And some people paint in the wintertime. I'm not one of them. I would be remiss if I didn't mention Tony and Cheryl Trujillo and the Agua Dulce for being our plein air home. They were there for every one of those events. They provided us support, and we really owe them a lot. We began as a committee of Rotarians. It has become an educational program dedicated to promoting the arts. Our biggest fan by far has been Mayor Clark and the City Council. Mr. Mayor, your support has been an important motivation and inspiration for us to continue the Robert Sullivan Duncanson programs. And without the Monroe Foundation's support as our fiscal agent, allowing us to use their knowledge and encouragement to promote our program, we wouldn't have existed. Finally, it would not have been possible without the generous support of the Lazy Boy Foundation. Their support of the Monroe community, especially the arts, is greatly appreciated. Their grant made this idea a reality. The generous support of the Rotary Club of Monroe, the continued support of the Monroe NAACP this year has made this program a success. As we are currently planning programs for 2023, we're looking for collaborative partners like the River Raisin Center for the Arts, Mr. Andrew Felder, the Monroe Museum System, the county library system. We're going to be doing presentations coming around to the libraries and doing presentations at Robert Sullivan Duncanson. Monroe Community College, business and industry, and the public, including the various art leagues of Monroe County and our surrounding communities. And Robert Sullivan Duncanson still is seeking more local and state grants to allow our programs to include more residents of all ages in the arts, music, theater, photography, and dance. We talk about diversity in the arts, we mean it. Diversity of the arts is what made Robert Sullivan Duncanson the greatest Western landscape artist in the 1800s. His artwork is based a lot on literature and music. These programs would not have been possible without support of dedicated members of Robert Sullivan Duncanson Society. Chris Call, Denise Gray, Leanne Albergo, and the right hand of this program, Mr. Jeffrey Albergo. And I'm going to turn this over to him because he's responsible for all these displays you see back here. And so I'm going to let him talk about this right now. Thank you.
Thanks, Patrick. Jeffrey?
Thank you, Pat. Good evening. First of all, my wife Leanne and I would like to thank the city and especially the parks departments. We were married in August across the street in the square, and everything looked beautiful, and all our friends just love our little city, you know. But then now it's the Duncanson thing. 2019, the DIA came here and said, "Hey, do you know who you got in your backyard?" And it's amazing. It really is amazing that we didn't know he was here. This man did more in 30 years for the art world than Picasso or even Van Gogh. He actually sold more paintings than Van Gogh when he was alive. He started here in painting houses here in Monroe with his father, and he decided he wanted to be an artist. So he went to Cincinnati. And that was in like 1830. He came here in 1830. 1840, he went to Cincinnati to study painting and art. And in 40, I think it was 1843, he was commissioned to go all the way up to Copper Harbor to paint the copper mines in the UP. And then he came back to Cincinnati, and in the 50s, he was commissioned to do paintings for a guy, one of the rich shipping guys down in Cincinnati, Longsworth. And he painted 8 murals that were 6 feet wide, 9 feet tall in the man's foyer. And that is now the Taft Museum of Art. He was commissioned by the editor of the Detroit Tribune to do a painting based on Uncle Tom's Cabin, the book, the abolitionist book. He also there was a sculpture called the Paris at the Gates of Paradise, which was carved in 1833 by a guy named Crawford. And he painted a painting of that went on to ended up at the DIA. The DIA lent it over to the Detroit Police Department, where it was vandalized by some rascals, as the 1876 Detroit Free Press said. And then there was a poem called The Land of the Lotus Eaters. And it was written by Sir, where's his name here? I'm losing it here. Tyson, Lord Tyson, and Alfred Tyson. And in the 1866 newspaper from Galveston, Texas, it says that a painter named Duncanson, formerly of Cincinnati, has found great favor in Scotland and England. He had been invited to visit London by the Duchess of Sutherland and the Duchess of Exile, who will be his patrons. Having made a fine picture of Tyson's Lotus Eater, a poem invited him to his house in the Isle of Wight. So in 1866, he traveled to the Isle of Wight in England to show this guy his painting. And it made these people down in Galveston, Texas, jealous about it or something. They didn't like the fact that this black person was being treated so nicely by dignitaries over in England and stuff. That painting now belongs to the Swedish Royal Collection in Stockholm. So, I mean, this guy has a lot going for him. And when we can bring in a name like that and incorporate him with Monroe and make him, like Upham, our little brown bear, or like George down the street there, or Jay Morton. And now we can say Duncanson. And Duncanson probably is more famous than any of them people because he has traveled the world. And it's, it's amazing that we need to elevate his status, his legacy, and his status up to meet with some of these other people in this town. And like Patrick said, I've exhibits here of some of his work and newspaper articles that go back to the 1870s. And his articles were written in New York, in Idaho, in Galveston, Texas, in Cincinnati, in the white newspapers, the black newspapers, the anti-slavery newspapers. And you go online, and every time I go online, there's something new out there that I didn't see before. And it's huge history. And Patrick's got some stuff he wants to go over about next year. But thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Jeff. Thanks for the review. And as Patrick comes up, well, I think the past year we've come to understand and really embrace Robert S. Duncanson as a Monroe person through his struggles in his early life and how he became a painter and became world known as the best Western landscape artist in the country and in the world. So I think that this is our great opportunities to recognize that. And I know that as having conversations with Patrick and the members of the group is how do we elevate that as we move forward into next year. And so, Patrick, I know you have some plans and thoughts. There's much of them, but
just a few. I'm just bringing up a few. We're looking at doing something in the summer. It's called painting up and down the river, and we'd start in Blissfield, go to Dundee, and come to Monroe. It'd be 1 week, and we'd have art contests, plein air art contests in all of them, but also have an art show here all 3 days. So we're not just art, but we're talking about music and dance and theater. We would involve everybody. And we're looking at having classes for kids and adults for art. And we're looking to develop grants so we can have that paid for, so that it wouldn't be any cost for somebody to learn how to paint. If you're a plein air artist, when you're out painting, you have a 2-hour window because of the shadows. So you learn how to paint quickly. So we would be able to teach people how to enjoy life, go out and sketch and stuff like that, and capture, because before photography, the only thing you had was art, visual arts, painting. And the River Raising Battlefield National Park would not be here because there were no photography, photographs of anything of the Battle of War of 1812. What they had was Frances Maydell, right down the street here, who captured everything because of her great imagination and her research on the battles. If you saw one of Fran's painting, and I used to have the opportunity to paint with her, if you see her painting, she would have notebooks. Everything that was in that painting, she had planned for. She had researched what kind of dog, what kind of wigwam, what kind of tent, what were they wearing? Was it correct? She would research that in and out, and that's what makes the River Racing Battlefield National Park so great, because it's so authentic. And we want to teach authentic art. So at that, I want to leave you with a thank you very much for supporting us. We want to partner with the YMCA and MCOP at the Opportunity Center. So if you have any questions, be happy to answer them.
Any comments or questions for Patrick or the group here this evening? I mean, there's so much that's about Mr. Duncanson and his life, and I think we're just starting to understand what that is and bring that forward. And I think there's many things that are planned for next year. The painting up and down the river is just one of their concepts and ideas. The idea of bringing back the art fair to be the Robert S. Duncanson Art Fair in the city of Monroe, I think that'd be so appropriate. So working on that and working on how we find the sponsorships for that, but also bring that activity, that vibrancy that of our arts collectively together, because we have great arts here. We have the RCA, we have arts through the museum, through our other partners that were here this evening. But how do we bring that to become the center? So, Kelly, a question or comment?
I was just curious, have you met with the curriculum directors at the various elementary schools?
We want to work on a curriculum for art. It would include Robert Duncanson to teach about him.
He's
one of us.
From an early age in our local school system. That'd be one way to elevate his legacy here in town.
Exactly that was one of our key primary goals to begin with, because I'm a lifelong educator.
Yes, great.
So I want to do that, but I also want to thank the mayor, because he went to Fayette, New York, which is the birthplace. And when they found out he was coming there, he was the keynote speaker. So they were thrilled, and they told me that the Historical Society there, Emily Sisson, she was just beside herself. And they had all kinds of people there, but they really liked having him here, having him there. And I really, really, really mean this. You were a great support, and we can't thank you enough.
Thanks, Patrick. It was a fun visit. It really was, and to see the new marker that was placed, the state marker, near the farm or the house in which he was born and where the family lived before coming to Michigan and Monroe here, and to see that sign and what that has potential here, as well as we start to make those recognitions within our community about things that have kind of been forgotten in past, but I always say we're going to learn about it, and now we have to capitalize on that for the reason of telling his story, his life, and the importance, the impact he made worldwide. So,
How a house painter can go to be a man who paints and he sold his paintings for $8,000 to $15,000 back then. I just did a little quick research on Google, and $8,000 now is $181,000. Not a bad income for a house painter.
Thank you, Patrick. Mr. Pastu, I know we have a few more items on the work session that we need to get through here yet this evening.
Okay, Your Honor, and Council, I'm going to make a little change here with the lineup here. I'd like to do the preliminary review of the refuse recycling bids. Mr. Lewis has got a handout for the council, and part of that is I'll hand these out. You want the whole one. But to let you know that as they're getting distributed here, that we had the bid opening, on the 14th, which was a week ago today. 5 vendors submitted bids for the recycling, refuse, yard waste service, as well as some commercial pickup as well. And the intent was to provide you a preliminary review of where we were. We had scheduled a special work session for next Monday night. But as we reviewed some of the bids, we'll talk a little bit more about where we are with them as the cost and the services kind of created a spread that looks to have one vendor probably in a better position. So we'll talk briefly about that. Patrick, if you want to just hit the high points real quick.
Certainly. Good evening, Honorable Mayor and Council. Patrick Lewis, Director of Engineering and Public Services. You do have the handout here, so I won't belabor that. There's on the second page of that handout there is a spreadsheet in which we've kind of delineated 3 different options. There was the base bid and alternate 1. Those 2 were specified by the RFP. And I will stress this is a request for proposals. We're not beholden to take the lowest bid, but we are, it's council's call whether they want to take the most advantageous bid. So we did leave the door open for the contractors, bidders to provide additional alternates as they saw fit. And 2 of them did do so. I will note the spreadsheet you've got there's only got 4 bidders on it. That was because Republic Services did not bid on the curbside contract. We also had bid items in there which I did not give you for brevity because those are not really the main crux of the discussion here. But we do have other commercial services, dumpster pickups, and special services like if we have storm cleanup and we need help with that. So those weren't really germane to the main discussion here. So I lopped off Republic's bids on those. So you're left with 4 bidders. And we bid this, we gave them spaces to bid years 1 through 5, which are intended to be the main contract. And most of what we've bid over the past 20 years has been 5-year contracts. But we gave them the option to bid on years 6, 7, and 8, should they choose. And these are fixed numbers. These aren't necessarily escalated with either CPI increases above or below a certain amount, and they're not triggered by diesel fuel spikes either. So these are the contractor's fixed bids. So we did have those 4 bidders were Stevens Disposal and Recycling Services, Waste Management, Priority Waste, and GFL Environmental. Those were the 4 bidders that submitted on those. The base bid was more or less as-is service. In other words, we said, quote what, if you're interested, quote what we have now. And that is basically recycle carts, yard waste collection, and trash with bags or cans, up to 35-gallon bags and cans or 60 pounds in maximum weight. Unlimited refuse pickup. 2 of the 4 bidders, in fact, the 2 with the lowest pricing, Stevens and Waste Management, neither one of those submitted on the as-is service. And I think Mr. Pastu has mentioned to you, and I had as well, leading up to this, that we anticipated that the vendors were interested in going to more automated collection. So keep that in mind as we go through this. The Priority Waste and GFL did also bid on those, and their unit pricing, and that's per unit per year. So when we say unit, that's a collection residential dwelling or a commercial business. We have 72 total units that we're picking up right now in the city. So I didn't do the math for you on the overall numbers, but that's just so you have a reference point. Alternate 1, which I've kind of described in the summary memo on the front there, we did get bids from Stevens, Priority, and GFL. Waste Management, again, did not submit on the alternate 1. But both Stevens and Waste Management did provide an additional alternate of their own. We scoped this alternate 1 in the RFP because we anticipated we would get bids on this, and that is that the contractor will provide either, we gave them the option for 64 or 96-gallon refuse carts. So this is different than the recycling carts that we have now. They would be provided by the vendor, and then residents can still use bags in their own cans. We didn't give them a specified limit. What we kind of wanted to do was see what they proposed to us. If they wanted to keep unlimited, fine. If they wanted to put a bag limit, fine. But we wanted to see what those numbers came back in. And part of the reason behind that is we know there are some places in town where it's going to be problematic. Second floor residential in the downtown area is a good example. There's no place to put a cart. So we have to kind of leave that open-ended for bags if the residents want to put bags out. And you may find a situation where you've got a single senior citizen living alone that's doesn't want to have a giant can and they only use a bag a week or something. So we left that option on the table for that. I'll back up for a second and say the one change we did make to both the base bid and alternate one was in recognition of, and of course this year will be the exception that proves the rule. Every year we seem to need to have yard waste go later and later in the fall. Last year we extended that an additional week. And we actually provided for that to go all the way through the second week of December in both the base bid and the alternate. So as-is service actually does include an additional week. So this year that would take us through the week of December 12th. But as you can see, this year it's not even an issue. All the trees are down well ahead of where they were last year. But we want to provide for that because that's a common service that residents want to see. So that was essentially no change to the service other than going to carts. So, as I mentioned, who provided numbers on that? We had supplemental alternates provided by both Stevens and Waste Management. And in Waste Management's case, that represented their only bids. They did not actually, on their alternate bid, give us pricing for years 6, 7, and 8 on theirs. Waste Management's was a little bit different than alternative 1. It was allows for one 96-gallon cart plus up to 3 bags per household. So that's essentially telling us what they think is a reasonable number. And that's roughly double what we were 5 years ago before we went to the unlimited collection. But one thing that they did was a further restriction on service was they actually went to every other week recycling collection. And I think that probably has something to do with what they're seeing on the tonnages, but that was a stipulation that was a little bit different. Stevens' alternate price was essentially the same as their alternate 1, except they wanted to give us a price as we presented it, but then modify it slightly. And Stevens actually proposed a rather ingenious alternative in that they didn't want to pick up bulk items on the regular day because they run a 5-day-a-week operation. So they are interested in having Fridays be the bulk day only. So essentially what that would do is to say, okay, residents, if you've got garbage and bulk, you got to put your trash out on Monday and you bulk out on Friday. Their logic behind that also was if there were any service problems or any issues, missed collection, they could collect that on Friday along with the bulk setup. Their pricing for that saved about $9 per unit, which adds up to about $76,000 per year. So the other thing that was in there, which we do need to do some massaging of this and some back and forth, they said their alternate includes either 2 carts per home or 1 cart, and then the resident can set out additional bags. I didn't specify the limit of additional bags, so we'll need to get some further clarification on that. And we also need a little bit of clarification on whether that would be at the homeowner's option or whether the city has to pick one or the other, whether it's everybody gets 2 carts or everybody gets 1 cart plus bags. Because if it'll probably be a record-keeping challenge for them if it's resident election, but that would obviously be the most favorable situation for the city, and that our residents could make that decision themselves. So those are I'll say real minor things around the edges that we can deal with when it comes to contract negotiation. But that's essentially the delineation of those items. You have an annual cost per, and I won't read all the numbers for you. You have an annual cost per unit that starts with Stevens. The lowest bid is Stevens alternate. We'll call it alternate 2. Their proposed alternate, which is $165 per unit per year. Our current price is $160.08 per unit per year. Our contract with Waste Management 4 years ago started at $148.20 was the price there. So it's about 8% more than it was in the first year of the contract. However, as I think we've mentioned before, we were expecting a fairly sizable jump this year just because of the general inflation and other factors. 8% over 4 years does not reflect what the market has been. So actually the $165 is actually essentially a 3% increase over what we're paying this year. I had a table with other statistics that we can provide you, but it essentially is a 3% increase over what we have today. The lowest price from Waste Management was $205.44. That was for the first year. And then, as you can see on the spreadsheets there, each one of those bids goes up from there. Stevens baseline alternate one that matches the RFP was $174 per unit. So that's more than a 3% increase. But in discussions preliminarily, internally, we feel there's not significant disadvantages to the bulk items on Friday that would justify us, spending the extra $9 per unit. That's at least our initial reaction to that. And in fact, there may be some advantages to that. So. Mr. Pastu and I wanted to give you a couple things to think about here, and maybe I think we wanted to have that discussion tonight if you were ready for it, or postpone that till later. But there's really a few decision points you'll see at the bottom of that outline. The first one, is there any reason that you feel we need to consider the as-is bids from either Priority or GFL? That's kind of question one. Question two is, because Waste Management has been our service provider for 20 years, and we have felt administratively they've done a really nice job for us, we certainly don't want to discount our current provider. However, you've seen the numbers, so there's a significant cost differential there. Would you like us to continue to consider Waste Management's bid further? And then any thoughts on that Friday alternate from Stevens? And then, moving forward of a lesser degree, which if you decide the answers to the first two of those are no, and the third one is yes, I think at that point, the city manager and I would proceed to sort of that massaging of the contract terms, and with a little bit of more discussion about the 2 carts versus 1 cart in bags. And then a secondary issue, which we don't have to get into tonight because I know we're stacked for time, is how do we want to handle the multi-unit residential? Because you've got some 3, 4, 5, even up to 8 units. Are we going to have 16 carts at those 8-unit dwellings? Are we going to have 6 carts at the 3-unit dwellings? Some of those are minor issues relative to the overall contract, but those are things that we can have further dialogue about. So those are kind of the 5 questions that we, city manager and I discussed this afternoon and wanted to bring in front of you. I think I will leave it there, Mr. Pastu, unless you have anything I missed.
I'm just going to I think, wrap it up. I did ask Patrick to highlight the Stevens and the Waste Management contractor alternates that were submitted. I think they're far and away, very good proposals. But I think at the end of the day, when you look at Stevens' pricing, it's just such a differential. I just did a quick calculation. It's like $290,000 a year difference between the two. And we've had a great relationship with Waste Management over the years. They've got good people here, and we've greatly appreciated working. But I think given Stevens does have a good reputation as well, and I think that given the price differential, what we would look at is discussing some of the other alternatives, fine tuning what would be a contract. I was thinking that this was going to be a lot more back and forth, looking at the pricing, at the service alternatives and the pricing, and council making some decisions. And you still may wish to do so, but from a staff's perspective, I think it kind of moved closer to where the Stevens contractor alternate seemed just in many ways more favorable, with some general fine tuning and refining before you move it toward a contract.
Thank you, Mr. Pastu. I'll look at council if there's any questions. I know there's a lot of information, a lot of data here. As you look at on the first sheet, number 3 is kind of some, I guess, if there's any initial thoughts that council has regarding those questions. Let me see. Michelle?
I have one. Why did Waste Management not submit prices? It seems like they don't want to work with us.
Well, I think
Let me just take, they're in the audience as well, and they made it very clear up front, this is where the industry is going. There was no, when Brian and I and Patrick met, back 6-7 months ago, it was readily clear that this is the direction where the corporation is heading, and they made that really clear. And as you can see from the proposals, the rest of the vendors are headed in that same direction as well.
Thanks. Andrew?
Yeah, a couple of things. First of all, I just want to be clear on what the contractor supplied alternates is, because it varies depending on the contractor that we're talking about, right? So for Stevens, essentially everything is the same, everything's still unlimited. Well, the recycling isn't necessarily unlimited, but it's what you can fit in that one bin, and then it's that one bin plus additional bags up to a question mark point.
I'm not sure it's unlimited, and that's, I think, a key point. They didn't specify a number, but, if you put 2 bins in there, it's, probably the equivalent of 3 bags, maybe 4 18-gallon bags easily fit in there. But, so I would think that they submitted with an expectation that it's not going to be unlimited. And again, those are something that we would need to discuss as well.
Yeah, I would be interested if the anticipation is then 1 trash can, and then when we're talking about, and I know that it's by can now, we're talking about the rollaway bins, and it sounds like everything's sort of moving in that direction. So when we on question D, when we're talking about the discussion about 2 carts versus 1 cart plus bags, when you're talking about 2 carts, you mean 2 trash designated carts?
Yes.
Plus the recycling cart that we already have.
Correct.
So that would be 3 in total.
Yes.
Plus the yard waste, plus the bulk pickup. Bulk pickup in this case for Stevens would be Friday only. Yard waste would remain unchanged. Is that my
Correct.
understanding?
Yep, that's our understanding.
For the additional week on yard waste, of course.
At the end of the year.
Yeah, at the end of the year.
Gotcha. And then the alternative for waste management is we're moving to the carts. So you have 1 trash cart, 1 recycling cart. Yard waste remains unchanged. Recycling is every other week. And then there wasn't much discussion about bulk pickup for the waste management contract either.
It's presumed to be unchanged.
Presumed to be unchanged.
Yeah.
At this point in time, if I'm waste management sitting in the audience, I work in sales, and generally I prefer a quick no rather than a slow maybe or a slow no. So I think that we want to be realistic with you guys. You're looking at the same numbers that we are. I'm generally in agreement with the city manager's recommendation that at this point we focus our attention on the Stevens proposal.
Other comments from council members on the proposals? And again, there's a lot of information here. And they're just looking, Mr. Pastu is looking for just some start direction on which way to go, because there's different categories, different items. Any thoughts, concerns, carts, no carts, bags? That's kind of where we're at, like the questions say here. And should we move forward with what, I guess as Councilman Felder has said, or his position? Just trying to look for that. I think the last item will be a further discussion, how we manage our multi-family buildings. We've talked about that before. I think that's more of a policy discussion versus a contract, because we'll have to figure that out with whoever may be the contracted with for this as a service provider. So I'm not prepared to have that conversation. That's down the road. Any other thoughts? Kelly?
Are these numbers set in stone as they go for the per unit per year?
Well, I believe they would be. I mean, I suppose if we made major changes to the service level where we said, we want you to have 4 carts per home or something like that. I mean, there's some fluidity there, but
I think they're pretty fixed.
Yeah, on the margins, a little, but not much at all. We're not going to get waste management's number down to $170 a unit.
Yeah. Well, if we're going for the lowest bid, I mean, kind of looks pretty obvious to me. So
I think when you look at this, there's obviously pricing and there's service. And I think that we were here just a few years ago talking about that very item. And I don't think there was a dispute about the service then. Might have been about the equipment. There are different things that I can't remember all we talked about. But obviously, this is a new day and a new presentation from a cost side and a service side. And I think we've gave us the opportunity over the past last few years to assess that service side as well, from even though not being our provider. And I'm comfortable with the recommendation that the manager has. I think we need to really focus on what we're going to get, finalize a contract, because that comes up here. It's not next month, but it's going to come soon enough. And the sooner we resolve this item and know where we're going, allows us to also take on many other things that we have on our list through this end of this year and the first quarter of next year. Kelly, do you have a follow-up?
Well, I was just gonna say, I think a lot of the conversation 5 years ago was how new Stevenson was with, and we're growing, so it'd be interesting to see where they're at now here 5 years later, so as far as, because we had a question about some of the equipment, would they be able to handle the city, and I don't know.
They've picked up several contracts of similar size to the city of Monroe. They have Frenchtown Township. They have Tecumseh, which is smaller than us, but not, you know, significantly smaller. They've got a number of communities in the, you know, Monroe County area, and they do subscription service to just about the whole county. So we even 5 years ago, we didn't have substantial concerns about their ability to provide the service, other than, you know, we were one of their larger customers 5 years ago. But we certainly don't have any reservations about continuing the award with them. And in particular, the bid spread this year was an order of magnitude different than it was 5 years ago.
It's my understanding too, the marginal difference was very negligible.
30,000 a year.
Yeah, and for you know, questioning whether the service change was warranted. So, but if that's the case, you know, we could talk a little bit more probably in the regular meeting about how we proceed forward with under the manager comment section at that point. So.
I just had a final comment. I think when you look at, you know, 2 carts versus a cart and a bag, I think that was stated well, that there's going to be circumstances which a cart's going to be challenging from some of our residents. And how do we find that contract that blends to make the service for what's needed and keeps within the range in which is being quoted. You know, the bulk on Friday only, I think about that, and I think some days it's just like every day there's bulk stuff out there, and I think managing it and making it direction actually makes it consolidated when it's done, but also the appearance and how that sometimes gets on the wrong days. So, Michelle, do you have another comment?
I work with Stevens in Frenchtown Township, and I know that I have to call if I have anything extra in another home. You think that'll be the case in the city?
That'll be part of the discussion that we have with them, and I don't mean to push those concerns off, but those are, I think tonight was about saying, would you like us to proceed to the, I'll say, contract negotiation phase, and that's where you get into the price may be fixed, but the service level is around the margins. We've got some tweaking we can do, and I think those are all good questions, and those are all things that our residents have become accustomed to throwing. I mean, the challenge we have now is we've got unlimited pickup, and we almost have too much stuff picked up, because now we're getting in arguments with people that throw the entire contents of their house out to the street and say, well, your flyer says it's unlimited, and then we have to deal with those types of things. So there's a little bit of a service, tweaking we're going to have to do to make sure that we're picking up 99% of the daily concerns with the residents. So we're isolating and focusing on those types of challenges where you have 3 or 4 things on a particular week.
So again, I think if council's comfortable with that, I talked to Brian a little bit before the meeting. My goodness, I don't know how many years we've worked together. Great service.
20.
Never had any problems, and I know he's retiring here shortly, and but they've been really good to work with. But Stevens, we have no qualms about either, and from a pricing and service standpoint, we just feel that's the right direction to go. So. But I wanted to say thanks to Brian.
Yeah,
had great working relationship, not only here in Monroe, but when I was in Farmington. So.
Yep, I'll echo that as well.
Yep.
Okay, unless there's no other comments.
Patrick, you ready for another one?
Yep.
All right.
You want me to pass the form out here? Huh? Sure. On both sides here.
While he's doing that, we do plan on having that multi-unit discussion on policy at a later
absolutely.
date.
Okay. Again, I'll make this as fast as we can. So I want this to be in front of council. Mr. Pastu asked me to put together a brief update on what I'll say are major projects, because I think actually construction's moving faster than we thought on the 2023 projects. In fact, I've got one of them that's already, I'll say, maybe a third of the way done, which we expected might not even start. And then one more that is probably going to start with some mobilization already, maybe even next week. So I want to give you a briefing on those big projects. We've got really 3 signature projects going on right now. The first of those is the Lazy Boy Phase 2 infrastructure. That's one you won't notice as much because it's not affecting residents, but we've actually got the detention pond, retention pond, sorry, because it's holding water. The retention pond is in and seeded, and we've actually got most of the storm sewer there. We've got working around one DTE conflict, but most of the storm sewer for the remaining Huber Drive is in. They're already actually working on cutting grades. They've got a water main relocation done there, and now we're going to have to wait for the box culvert to come in. So we're moving on that one. The completion date on that was July 31st, but we expect that the contract will be done probably in May on that, so provided we have no delays. So I wanted to bring you up to speed on that. We are staffing that inspection-wise for the most part ourselves, although I do have Manick and Smith on board to do the structural reviews of the culvert itself. The next big project in time order, and which they're going to start in order here, is the St. Mary's Garden storm sewer. And I had mentioned to you before, we were trying to set up a couple of meetings with the residents themselves because it's a big, complicated project. I started working on the PowerPoint presentation yesterday already, got partway through, and then I get the contractor called me today, says, you know, we'd like to start mobilizing next week. So I said, I guess I'd better hurry that up. So we are going to try to meet with the residents, set up a meeting either the week of the 5th or the 12th to sort of lay out for them what they can expect with the project. But they have expressed a desire to start working on the large diameter portions of the storm sewer if they can, which will involve some disruption to the roadway, but they'll be working in one kind of line at a time. So they'll just be in one spot moving around. And they've been informed they're responsible for snow removal and things like that. So that is one the Spicer Group will be inspecting for us, although Chris Schaefer, our assistant city engineer, is going to have his hands full just coordinating and communicating with the residents because this will involve connecting their storm sewers to our new system. So they can do this big work in the wintertime because of the size of the equipment they have, so I think we're going to let them. We keep it on schedule. Pump station, though, might not be live until the fall because of components, so they're aware they're going to have to bypass pump the storm sewer when needed. So that's that one. And then Carnes Park, we believe that the vast majority of that work will occur starting in the spring, although the contractor, Salenbean, would like to start removing the play equipment and the ball diamonds and the overhead lights and things and get the site cleared for next year. So we figure that we'll probably allow them to do that. We have the pre-construction meeting scheduled for the 7th of December on that. I'll leave it there because those are our major items, but you have sort of an information sheet in front of you for a little more detail if you'd like.
Obviously, that's a quick review of the projects, and these are just the ones that are at this point, and we have many that are coming after that. So I'll make a comment here on this particular item. If there's thoughts that you see on there, obviously Mr. Pastu and Mr. Lewis would be available for discussion. Same with the last item we talked about on the refuse collection. If you think of things as we go through, I think the administration has a direction we're going, but if there's any follow-up thought about it or clarification, please make sure you get a hold of Mr. Pastu just to review that, and if you think it through here in the next couple of days, it would be helpful for them. Same with here on the project updates. An update, but there's much more. Andrew?
Yes, real quick. Does the change in itinerary here, I'm happy to let them proceed with all due haste. That's fine. Does that have any impact on the outstanding appropriations for the projects? I'm thinking back to when AUK was working in the winter on the fire station and they wanted heating stuff and elements. Nope. And
Nope, this is one where they're inside a warm cab and they're hogging out dirt and putting.
Okay.
That's what we thought. We got a stacked year next year. Let's keep them moving. So no, you're correct. It will not incur additional cost for us. So great question though. Appreciate it.
Other questions on this item? Well, Mr. Pastu, I don't know if you want to.
If I could just the couple items there, I think we didn't get a chance to talk about the social district, but clearly I think it is under council action. I'll have Mr. Cochran's going to do his introduction, kind of walk through the changes from when we had our last work session. And I think also under, manager comments, I can handle, just a quick introduction with the Lake Erie Transportation Commission interlocal agreement. Pretty straightforward, but I still think sufficient enough to warrant some discussion with council. The other thing I'm going to ask council to consider is, with what took place, with the bids that we received for the recycling refuse collection, I'm not sure we necessarily need to have that discussion next week with that for the work session that we had previously scheduled. I think a lot of it is at this point just staff meeting with Stevens to kind of fine tune what that scope of work is. And then the other part of it is I know that Dr. Everly's been meeting with council members And that was going to be the other topic for the meeting on the 28th. Where I'm going with this is I'm not sure you need to have that, because I also don't have anything scheduled for the December 5th work session at this point in time. I can sweep those two in together. That'll give both Mr. Lewis and Dr. Everly some more time to work on fine-tuning that discussion. And in the case of the search process, probably even more beneficial is I'll be on vacation that week and not present. So I think that's an added plus for it as well. So if council is comfortable, I would recommend when you get to the agenda to amend it to make some motion to, cancel the meeting previously scheduled for November 28th.
So I'm looking at Clerk Lavoie regarding that. Is a motion required, or is it something we?
Well, so from my perspective, it's not. I guess I would ask Mr. Buds if legally it is.
The only thing that I'll say is, since we had added it to the agenda, or I should say to the city's schedule already, I think it would be appropriate to just have a motion to confirm that it won't.
It hasn't been posted yet.
Okay, then if we haven't posted, then we don't need to do that. I think it would just be informational then, because it hasn't been posted.
It has not
Obviously,
been
it will be
posted.
part of the minutes, and so.
So I guess is to achieve
Water, just keep it simple if we can.
What's, pardon me?
I just want to keep it simple if we can.
Maybe a way to achieve both of those, and Mr. Pastu, during your comments, if you would raise that item, that way we're speaking to it here at the meeting, and that it's not been posted, then Clerk Lavoie can assure that it's not posted, and it's not that special meeting next week or is not going to occur, just so we cover the bases. So, but my understanding with that is the items that were planned to be discussed there will be on the December 5th work session for us to have that conversation. Because I think it's important we do, but just necessarily doesn't mean it has to be in a special scheduled meeting.
And I thought there'd be a lot more complexity associated with the decision to select a vendor for the refuse recycling contract.
I agree. I think it's a little more clear than what maybe we anticipated from preliminary at this point. Unless there's any objections to that, we can look to the 5th. Andrew, thought, comment?
I'll have some stuff in my comment time at the end of the meeting, but
Okay.
I think whatever result is going to come of that is going to require more than a week's preparation anyway, so I'm comfortable moving in that direction.
Okay. There's nothing further. I think we'll take care of the others in the meeting, as you said. So we have about 4 minutes before the meeting. So at this time, I will adjourn the work session. We'll be back here shortly to start with the regular council meeting. Thank you. I gotta run upstairs real fast. Pop one of these.